Hi everyone. So WordPress is in the title of this talk, but actually WordPress is not actually super important part of it. It's really, how do we develop, predominantly web-based CMS things with AI, and I come from the WordPress world, so I just put WordPress in the title in case anything specific does come up there. My background is not in Drupal, which I think there might be a few people here from. I'm Joe. I recently moved to Quebec. I live in Bromont, but I came in today for this. As mentioned, I founded a company called Human Made. We're like an enterprise WordPress agency. We work with large companies to allow them to use WordPress in a kind of scalable and secure way, I suppose. Whenever I'm talking about AI, I always want to bring up like the hype cycle graph. I don't know if anybody's seen that before, but I always find it's good to contextualize AI because it's moving very quickly, and expectations of AI might be changing as we learn more and new things come out. So the hype cycle, which kind of graphs over time, how much hype is there for a given technology, kind of what should our expectations of that be. So for example, like, I don't know, a few years ago, LLMs, everybody suddenly knew about them, the hype was huge, that's the kind of peak of inflated expectations. Everybody thinks that LLMs are going to take over the world and do everything for us. And then the more that we kind of like use the technology, you kind of come to this trough of disillusionment, which is like realizing they actually can't do everything. You know, AIs or LLMs like can't think or model the world, and then hopefully we actually find things that they are good at, and that's where we kind of come back up into our slope of enlightenment or plateau of productivity. And that's kind of what I want to focus on, is how we've been able to use AI as part of our process, part of our development workflow, and where those tools are slotting in, and hopefully just kind of share some experience there on what we're actually finding give us productivity wins and increases, things like that. Now there's some challenges that we've experienced with like adoption of different AI tooling in the development workflow. One is from our client side, so it might be like intellectual property or compliance and things like that, where they're nervous about having code running that is written by an AI, or those kind of things, or maybe there's some top-down rule on how AI can be used and things. So that's definitely a bit of a challenge when we're wanting to like use more AI tools in our job, in how we like build websites for clients. There's obviously the tool maturity, like that is a major blocker. A lot of the tools that demo well are actually quite difficult to use, like in your day job as part of the things, connected to all the tools you need them to connect to, have all the knowledge you need to have them connected to. So the maturity of the tools is still very early, so that's still kind of a major challenge. Also, like the developer awareness. So not everybody comes to events and conferences like this, aren't necessarily aware of all of the tools that are out there. So just the fact that developers don't know about a lot of these tools is also a bit of a challenge. As CTO at Human Made, I have the job of trying to bring everybody along and adopt and use tools across the organization that are going to improve our effectiveness and efficiency, which AI obviously falls under. And getting everybody kind of using tools can be a challenge, let's say. Also, there is a cost. Most of the LLMs have a cost to them. They're not massively expensive, right? Like a enterprise ChatGPT account or something is manageable, but it's still a cost that we kind of need to take on, with most of the AI tools being kind of hosted services, or certainly the state of the art. So I want to talk about the development process and how we use AI throughout that process, just to kind of share how we've been able to adopt some things, and ultimately maybe that's something that you can adopt too. So development process is, I guess, starts with planning. We are like agile-based shop, so that's like sprint planning, those kind of things. Then we have like the meat of the feature development. That's where developers like writing code and building things and that kind of stuff. Then hopefully they have like a process of testing, fixing things. Then you have like code review, those kind of things, static analysis tools, etc. Then you release your software updates, and then you monitor it, hopefully, to make sure that it's still working. So that's kind of just broad strokes, I think, what the overall process is that most of our work kind of goes through. When it comes to planning, there's not a huge amount here, I think, that we've kind of adopted. One thing is definitely like there's a lot of meetings, and now AI note-taking has taken over, and that's actually been a big relief. Like, we're a fully online kind of asynchronous organization, so note-taking was like such a huge thing that we had to spend a lot of time doing to make sure everybody is kind of up to date on what was decided in meetings or what was discussed. So we're using, I think, combination of Granola and Google Meet, for example, there. So that's definitely like reduced a bit of a burden from the team. Another thing that we've been using is we use Jira for most of our projects, so we have that connected via MCP to Claude, for example, so you can kind of get more qualitative, what has happened in the last day kind of updates through Jira, which is interesting but still early. And then also, I mean, in Jira, like user acceptance, writing user stories, those kind of things, we're finding AI is quite good at just kind of like cleaning up those in terms of consistency and things. So maybe you have clients that are writing user stories that are accidentally just kind of like, I don't know, using the wrong perspective or tense or whatever. You can just kind of run that through LLMs to give you a bit more of a standard starting point there. Again, like bug reports can come in just like many different forms, and being able to standardize on that, run them through LLMs can be good. I find AI is quite good for that kind of, you've already got the meat of the thing, you just need to change how it's presented or change the way that it's written to be a different perspective on it or something. It's very powerful in those kind of cases, and again, like where I think you can actually use it in production, so to speak. So then we have like feature development. This is like, as developers, that's where our time is. It's using tools like VS Code plus Copilot in agentic mode. I don't know if people are using those kind of tools, Claude Code. GitHub came up with GitHub Codex, which is like, write a task in an issue and then just have the GitHub Copilot LLM like build that thing for you. So we are using some amount of those on real, client projects. In WordPress especially, there is like a good amount of boilerplate, I would say, to each project, like building custom, content types or plugins or custom block editor blocks, things like that. So a lot of those jobs that were kind of, 1 to 2 day on a roadmap have become maybe like 2 to 4 hours or something. So kind of repetitive glue code, I would say, we're definitely finding that it gives us good kind of productivity wins there. On the kind of more vibe coding, I'm just going to get the AI to write this whole thing for me. I would say like much less so, but I think that there is an approach that does allow for that kind of development. It just needs like, maybe that gets you 70% of the way, and then you've really got to take the time as the expert developer to actually go and clean that up and make it production ready. So I don't think we're not replacing jobs certainly with AI, because that still needs to be done at a bare minimum. Also things like documentation, written documentation, PHP doc, that kind of things. LLMs are pretty good at helping you with those kind of things, because you've already written the code. In theory, the information is already there. You just need to like extract it. Commit messages is another one. So it's like small productivity wins, I would say. For anybody that isn't aware, that's just my VS Code. That's my Copilot on the right, and then I can ask it to do things, and I'm editing the code alongside it. Just quickly show that. Here was a WordPress plugin that I tried to build, for example, completely hands-off, so I didn't let myself touch the code at all, which is why it looks a bit jank. This was like a custom block editor module that allows you to embed 3D assets, for example, and the AI here like wrote all of that functionality on the left, but then all of the UI that you see on the right for changing like the dials and knobs for the configuration did all of that for me. So it can definitely get to that level of hey, this works, but realistically I would have needed to have probably spent 2 hours more actually making everything production ready, refactoring things, stuff like that. And that's kind of how I see this vibe coding thing work, right? When you're vibe coding, you're prompting, it's adding things, it kind of looks right. This is my really advanced visualization of the idea. And if you squint, it's kind of correct, but it's not really perfect. But actually, really, what you need is the correct thing if you're going to push into production. Especially, I think for agencies that are like charging clients a good amount of money for their websites. Everybody's expecting things to be fairly well built. So it's really that process of refinement that is where the focus is becoming for us. In testing, we're finding it's useful for things like unit testing to some degree, though a lot of the web work that we build, frankly, doesn't have unit tests because there's a lot amount there that is just kind of glue UI code that is a little more tricky. There's an interesting project around Playwright, which is like scripted browser testing and using AI to do that as well, but I think we're still early there ultimately. And then, let's check how I'm on time. When it comes to fixing things, this is one area where I use it a lot. I have a lot of experience in WordPress, and frankly, I'm like usually not really stuck when it comes to WordPress things. So if I have a problem there, I'm going to be able to solve it. But if I run into a problem that is like outside of that domain expertise, maybe I'm like dealing with a seg fault or something in a PHP extension, I'm needing to like look at C code or something, I'm definitely out of my comfort zone on that kind of thing. So like LLMs, very good, I would say, at being able to just be like a pair programmer or rubber duck to be able to dig into those areas that you might not be so confident with. Maybe like, I don't know, database queries is another one in terms of like bad performing queries and that kind of thing. Anywhere that's going to be outside your kind of narrow domain where you might be an expert, then I've found that AI is really great, and just again kind of like what would have been maybe 2 days of like Stack Overflow hunting and copy and pasting things and things not working, you can definitely reduce that by a significant amount. And then code reviews, so human made like most companies, I'm sure, like really everything is code reviewed that gets pushed out by somebody else. GitHub has a pretty good like request AI review, which is like, it's not a replacement for code review, but it is a good first step. I will get a code review, make sure I didn't miss anything or accidentally commit some file or something. The AI is going to snag those kind of things, and then you can leave the human review to like maybe do some more architectural level kind of things, or I don't know, gotchas that the AI might not have noticed, that kind of thing. So really just an additional tool on top of what teams are already doing. We've definitely felt that it helps there. When it comes to releasing and monitoring, honestly, we haven't found much really that we're using in AI there. Maybe things will come along, but yeah, we should definitely see. Obviously, it's a fast-moving landscape. So we've been, I would say, using these things integrated into our workflow for maybe like 6 to 12 months, so it's still quite early. Obviously new tools are coming out all the time, but I did want to share just a couple of learnings that we've had through that. So the first is, it doesn't, writing things with AI doesn't change who ultimately has to own and be accountable for that code. So though you might be able to ship a lot more, you're still having to take care of a lot of things that are shipped to production. And what that also means is that you need to maintain an understanding. Developers still need to understand the code that has been written by AI. I don't think that we're anywhere close yet to that not being the case. So still take responsibility for your stuff. Another thing that I've observed is AI makes great developers even greater. So your typical like, I don't know, let's say senior principal engineer is even better with AI, like way better. Like they know what they need to do, they can offload things to AI and they're all over it, they're on top of it, they're getting what the AI is doing, they're fixing it when they see something is wrong. So it's actually, I think, more of an accelerant to people who really know what they're already doing. And what that also means is, on more junior developers' side, it gives the impression that junior developers could be more experienced than they actually are, which is obviously not like, it's not a bad thing that a less experienced developer is going to be able to achieve more. But for somebody like in my position, where I need to like assess how people are performing, how are they learning, how are they progressing, the expectations are changing, because now a junior developer can throw up something that on first glance looks like very advanced capabilities that they have. But if I don't interrogate it a little bit more to understand exactly what of that code have they written themselves and what haven't they, it actually kind of makes that a more difficult process. So where the very senior engineer, is moving much faster, the junior developer is much more able to like throw things up and doesn't necessarily need to understand it. But then my ability to kind of like understand their level needs to evolve ultimately. I need to not take the fact that, oh, they wrote a function in that way that does some fancy algorithm or something. If they were the ones that wrote that, that means something. And if they're the ones that got an AI to write it, it's still a perfectly valid thing for them to do, but my assessment just needs to change on understanding what are they doing. So that's all I had with my kind of like experience over the past year, really, of using these tools, like I would say in production, so to speak. And thank you. For any questions, happy to answer.
So, any questions?
So are you building a business case in terms of the time savings, because you're using AI throughout your process, and obviously you need to sort of complement that with some human effort as well? So are you tracking that right now to say that I'm saving this much time in development or user stories or testing or whatever, and then comparing that?
So on the kind of internal business case, I would say not massively. I mean, me and my business partners are fairly like bought into from first-hand experience, so it's not like I'm having to prove that. Internally, though, having said that, this is not used across the board, and once I do that for all engineering teams, development teams, that could happen. But also there's the question, I guess, of how much this is a thing that you are using as like a selling point with clients as well, because we're an agency, we're in the space of, why hire us versus somebody else. AI in our development practice, I would say, is not a big part of that story, frankly, right now. I think I would want more demonstrable, metrics that was improving because of that. What we are doing a lot more on the client communication side is we're building AI-driven solutions for them, which is kind of a whole different topic to this. This is kind of to do with developer productivity. But I would say when it comes to clients, the larger question is, how can you use AI in the CMS to help you, and then we will build those things for you.
Do you think the name of your company being human-made changes the way you approach AI?
Love the question. It definitely doesn't change the way that I approach AI, but it definitely has been a thing that I've thought about in terms of more of a branding thing than anything, if I'm honest. Though we did come up with a company name, wanting, that was like in the web standards era, where really paying a lot of attention to your code was just like a big thing. Don't just have your code be spat out by Dreamweaver, have somebody write it that's really intentional about it. So I guess the roots of the company are kind of in that, it should be this kind of artisanal kind of process, which is changing, but I would just say, no, me personally, I don't have any qualms about leveraging the tools.
At our company, not everyone kind of gets the same benefits equally from AI, and it's been sometimes a challenge to kind of exchange and teach others how to use it. How do you do this in your team?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I would say our culture is more one of certainly trying to empower people to use things rather than me having a more dictatorial, you need to do X, Y, or Z. So I am definitely having that challenge to some degree. I've done things I recently started a discussion, just getting people to share what they were already doing so others could see and understand that. We have developer hangouts where people are showcasing things, and I'm trying to get people to focus on that topic more. But certainly it has been a little bit of a surprise to me, I guess, how as developers, we would think of ourselves as people that are quite open to the latest and greatest thing, to changing how we're doing, but actually the reality isn't always like that. I mean, WordPress as a whole deals with this because it's such a kind of technical project in yesterday's technology as well, so it's not like we select for people that are always wanting to use the latest Next.js framework or something. It is a little bit more conservative than that, so it's definitely been a challenge, but I'm really just trying to highlight benefits as much as possible. No doubt there will be like one or two that are just like, you know, maybe just outright opposed even like to using AI, right? So that is going to be a challenge, but I haven't got to that point yet of like, you know, I think we're still fairly early. If in maybe a year, you know, there are people that are just flatly not using it, then it maybe is going to become more of a performance-based thing as the delta on what they're able to produce versus somebody else is changing. But honestly, right now, I'd say the variance between developers is still larger, just based off of, you know, who is the developer, what are their tendencies, what are they good at. That's still a bigger difference between 2 web engineers or web developers versus like one that uses AI and one that doesn't. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.